What's up everybody, this is BR, and today I want to take a step back from doing a discussion video and instead do an analytical review of Overwatch 2's beta. Now I'm doing this as the opportunity arises since I was able to get a key, which is funny because, well, I'm not actually the biggest fan of Overwatch, hashtag I hate Overwatch. But because I do have an intrigue in game design, I want to take a look at Overwatch 2 in an analytical sense in its current state and hopefully suggest some opinions that could possibly improve the game. Keep in mind, this isn't going to be the most objective video out there. This is specifically going to be around my enjoyment of the game and what I perceive as good design and fun. And hopefully as an Overwatch player, you can get a better perspective from someone who, again, doesn't enjoy Overwatch, hashtag I hate Overwatch. Also, this video isn't going to be structured in any significant way either. I'll only really be talking about my experiences playing either tank, DPS, and support. If there's anything to talk about specific heroes, then, well, I'll take time to talk about them, but mostly I'll just overlook and generalize each section. So without further ado, let's talk about Overwatch 2. So the first significant thing that I noticed about the first Overwatch beta is just how much more brawlier it is compared to Overwatch 1. With only one tank available and that tank being less shield focused, Overwatch 2 plays significantly more aggressive compared to Overwatch 1. Now personally, I do enjoy this change. As a hardcore FPS player, being able to do a lot more stuff in the battlefield just generally feels a lot more fun. The game just feels significantly higher paced. A consequence of this change, however, was that the DPS were also very significantly buffed. Without active protection on the battlefield, you really didn't have any protection against damage unless you had a Winston, Reinhardt, or Sigma. But back then, everybody was playing Orisa's new changes, which to many made Orisa just be a lot more fun. Hitting those spears dealing high damage definitely does feel great. And overall, I do think that was the main goal of the tanks, which was to make them more fun and aggressive. Though its other consequence is that a lot of the squishy support heroes were pretty much left in the dust. Heroes like Zenyatta and Ana really did suffer the most. Without a reliable way to protect themselves aside from Ana's sleep dart, you really were just a sitting duck. So in order to compensate, they have given all support heroes a passive regeneration and just buffed up mercies, which I actually want to talk about later in the video. So now we get a good idea of what Overwatch 2 tried to accomplish and what it did and what side effects came out of it. So now we have the newest patch which tried to remedy a lot of these side effects and things that sucked for a lot of players. Most significantly, support players. So the first thing that became noticeable was the attempt to increase support survivability. For example, Zenyatta, who was given a very powerful kick, and arguably is now a good counter for Reaper. And the skill ceiling for Mercy's ultimate was lowered, which is still a controversial change. And they also gave Angelic Descent better control. The other support heroes weren't given any changes since, for the most part, their survivability is pretty good already. But for now, support still remains the weakest part of Overwatch 2. And I can see Blizzard trying their best to increase that survivability, though I don't think it's being managed in the best of ways. While the support buff of giving everybody regenerative health seems like a good solution, this can easily be exploited, making supports overall just a stalling machine. While they do survive a lot better, it's a lot harder to punish them. And since many of them have effective ways of escaping a fight, they can bounce out and regenerate a lot of health very quickly and then bounce right back in. And this really weakens those heroes that deal damage over time, especially since they're not as good as dealing final blows to these support characters. Now, I'm not saying that support heroes are overpowered in any way, otherwise people would actually play them, but this does make the game overall a little bit more frustrating than it has to be. Having ability or passives that continuously nullifies a player's progress really just doesn't feel good. It's not fun to have your progress erased immediately that can just run away from a fight and just heal up. So I suggest that we remove the passive healing and instead give supports either higher base health or transform some of that health into armor. That way you're still increasing survivability, but without the annoying factor of reverting progress. Though we still have a lot to see of what Blizzard is going to implement with support heroes, and who knows. Maybe they'll be able to decipher something that'll benefit everybody. And on to damage, there's really not much to complain about. There are still plenty of heroes that need to be tuned up in order to fit this new 5v5 playstyle, but most of them I don't really play on a regular basis, nor do I really care, so I'm just gonna skip over them. Though I will say that overall, a lot of the changes from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 are very well liked by me, especially with the huge reduction in crowd control. Though there is one very huge thing that I have to complain about, and that's with Sombra. In short, el hecho que ella me puede hackear mientras que ella está invisible es totalmente una pendejada. Okay, so for you English speakers, what I meant to say there was, I find it extremely frustrating that Sombra can hack while invisible, and while I do understand her other changes in making her a lot more DPS friendly, the fact that her hacking ability can be done while invisible makes it harder to punish and, just not fun overall. Especially since her hacking abilities not only disables your own abilities, but you also take a lot more damage because of it. It's basically like a Zenyatta orb, but without any counterplay. It just becomes extremely frustrating. I'm sure with a well-coordinated team, this could easily be dealt with, but damn, I guess I just never had a well-coordinated team. And finally, I do think that Soldier 76's ultimate rework was a little unnecessary, but that could just be me. And finally, the new damage roll passive is, I guess, alright. It's a lot more intuitive compared to the movement speed passive, and will definitely allow people to be less afraid to switch heroes, but honestly, it's a little underwhelming. Finally, we have the tank heroes, and really there's not much to say since tanks have been pretty well served at the moment. Overall, they're all pretty great, and for the patch notes, it's all just quality of life stuff and balancing. Changing values here and there and buffing and nerfing some characters. Nothing really significant. And finally, we have the main course of the deal, Junker Queen. Which, of course, fits the idea of tanks being a lot more mobile and aggressive. Now, fighting against her has been kinda wishy-washy as far as enjoyment goes. For positives, she doesn't feel overpowered and her damage isn't that detrimental, though her smaller hitbox does compensate, especially if you're playing a damage hero who requires some sort of mechanical skill. Junker Queen at times can be very hard to hit, and her overheal definitely grants her some great survivability. Though it's really early to tell, she's kind of on the border of being fun to fight against and frustrating. So we're really gonna have to wait and see to see whether or not Junker Queen really is an overpowered beast or just one of the other tanks. Now, playing as her is, of course, a whole heck of a lot of fun. Hitting her knife and then pulling them just to deal shotgun damage is just a whole heck of a lot of fun. Her rallying cry is useful, but I don't know if it's, overpowered or anything. Instantaneous health, even if it lasts only for a couple seconds, can be a deal breaker when it comes to balancing. But right now I can't really form an opinion on it. And her ultimate is pretty nice at getting in deep and dealing a lot of damage through their backline. But this tank really isn't for protection, it's more for suppression, and if your other teammates can't handle themselves on their own, well, then you might want to switch to another tank. Overall, Junker Queen is pretty fun, and I think it's a great addition to the Overwatch roster. We're just gonna have to wait and see whether or not she's seen as something overpowered or something underpowered. But hey, that's what a beta's for. And that's really all I have to say about the Overwatch 2 beta. If you have any opinions, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, like it if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. If you'd like to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.